Welcome to Side Hustle City, and thanks for joining us. Our goal is to help you connect to real people who found success turning their side hustle into a main hustle, and we hope you can too. I'm Adam Kaler. I'm joined by Kyle Stevie, my co-host. Let's get started. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Side Hustle City podcast. Kyle Stevie, the co-host, is taking care of kid business again today, but we have a special guest, Maria Romano, dating coach. How are you, Maria?
I am doing fine. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing excellent. It's a little rainy outside, but I'm inside, and it's fairly warm out, so I'm not going to complain. The plants need water.
Well, I'm in Las Vegas.
Oh, well, you guys definitely need some water. You could use some water.
It's warm today in the 80s, yes, and sunny.
You guys could use some moisture, probably. You ever get like the chapped lips and chapped fingers and stuff from being in the desert, or is that mostly Denver? Maybe that's just Denver.
No, let me tell you, chapstick and Jergens lotion is my friend. Okay.
Well, Jergens lotion started here in Cincinnati. Just FYI.
Really? I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah. It's owned by Cow Brands now, but yeah, Jergens lotion right down the street here. So you never know. This is the city of consumer packaged goods. Kroger, Procter & Gamble, they're all here. So wanted to bring you on today because I thought it was really interesting. You know, you started a business, True Love Knots, and you have a passion for love. You have a passion for people who are in love. You have a passion for, a demographic that, isn't really catered to when it comes to weddings, to dating, to all those things. And, the dating industry is huge, and people have made a lot of money on things like Tinder, Bumble, all these apps out here. One of the most successful women startup entrepreneurs started Bumble, who used to work, I think, at Tinder, right? And decided that wasn't the scene for her and came up with something new. It's great to have you on the show today. I really thank you for being on the show. But tell us a little bit about your background. Let's get into that.
Well, my background wasn't always love. I mean, of course, we have a lot of love in our life. I started off in the car rental industry in Las Vegas for many, many years. And my late husband and I, we opened up a car rental company and we sold it in 2010. As being a small business owner in a field that's quite difficult, it's like all of a sudden Walmart coming in and you're a small hardware store in the city. So we fortunately got out in time. And a couple of years later, my husband passed away. But and during that, I should stop and say for a moment, my husband also had a heart transplant in 1997. So I always knew I was going to be on borrowed time. And when we sold our car rental company in 2010, I knew I still needed to do something else. That's for sure. I was in my 50s and I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. So I started looking around and I actually went to a wedding that I was invited to at the Las Vegas Country Club. And there was a woman officiant. And I thought, you know what? Wouldn't that be kind of neat? And that's how I actually fell into officiating weddings. And come to find out as we go through our conversation today, which I'm so excited to share with your viewership, your listeners, I should say, is sometimes you never know what your niche is, but my niche is all about love because it's not just weddings as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us so you were at this conference or you were at this country club and you were at a wedding, woman officiant, that inspired you to take this next step. But where were you in your life at the time? I mean, it sounds like you had just sold this business, life was kind of in shambles a little bit, right?
Yes.
Were you looking? Were you actively looking to be an entrepreneur again? You weren't looking to go back and work for somebody, or how was that? How was that things playing out in your head?
Yeah, well, in the car rental company that we owned, we had about 70 employees. And as you know, in a company that size, you're always you have to pay your overhead, right? You have to make sure you have enough sales coming in. You have to make sure you're competitive. So it was a time of our life. It was time to just sell and come out of it just clean and not have the headaches of, the day-to-day operation. And I, being in that, running a company for, at that time, that was considered a large business to me because we did about $18 million a year in sales.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to remember, the average ticket sale for a car rental at the time was probably about $150, maybe $180. So that's a lot of volume when you add it up. And that's just car rental sales. So, and I didn't want the pressure because, again, my late husband, he died a couple of years later. At that time, he was in a wheelchair. He was on oxygen 24/7. And he did well with his heart transplant in 97. But as it evolved, if anybody out there is listening and understands what it takes when you become a transplant recipient, there is a lot of drugs you need to take to keep you going. And those are the drugs that actually break down your body that cause you then to have other issues, and then you can pass away. And that's exactly what happened. So it's kind of like, it's a push-pull. You just never know. So with that said, again, at that time, I was thinking, okay, I still needed to work. I needed to find something. And I wanted to be around a field that was going to make me happy. And Adam, what better than marrying people, right?
Yeah.
Coming into their lives. And it just didn't evolve that way. I mean, there's a lot of steps that I've learned along the way, but it has been a fun, fulfilling journey.
Yeah. So you go from this $18 million business, stressful. I mean, $150, $200 tickets. I mean, divide, $18 million by $150. That's a lot of people. And a lot of logistics and a lot of probably dents and dings and all kinds of stuff came back. I rent one car on Turo right now. And I post about it all the time on the side hustle thing, because I don't know how familiar you are with Turo, but it's
I am.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here it's just kind of catching on because there's not a huge demand like there is in Vegas, obviously, for rental cars. But yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that people leave in my car and some of the smells they leave in my car and it's just, and then every time you turn it over, you got to disinfect it. You got to clean it. You got to take it through the wash, all that stuff. I mean, I could just imagine the amount of volume and the amount of stress you guys must have been dealing with. I mean, sounds like great money, but at the end of the day, it probably took its toll on you.
It does. And, there's rewards in the business as well. However, again, you you're the small mom and pop amongst the Walmarts or the Amazons. And it's kind of hard to compete because there were times in the rental car industry where some of the competitors would go down to $8 a day. How can you repeat? How can you compete with something like that? You might as well just hand the customer the keys and say, go enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Just bring it back full. And then, of course, you had gas situations at times where gas was difficult to get. You talked about dings, right? You have to worry about people having accidents. When you have a large fleet of about 1,100 cars, of course you have incidents happening. And sometimes those incidents don't turn out to be where you just walk away with the dent. Unfortunately, sometimes people get injured and sometimes people pass away. So there's that liability of insurance on top of that. And you're dabbling in a smaller way. Okay. And you have insurance that Turo, I think, provides you,
Yep.
Which is great. But you know what? You want to make sure that you set yourself up so that you don't have the exposure on your personal side, right? But there's always somebody there that's going to be they're going to try to get out there into the legal world, be a little litigious, and they're going to go after you. Maybe, even though you might have this insurance, they're going to still try to sell you, they're still going to try to go after you.
Oh yeah. It's just
legally. Yeah. So it's just, that's something that people don't realize when you're at a large volume. But I think what Turo's doing is great. So I was listening to a great podcast about it. So I think it's wonderful keeping it on a smaller scale, making yourself a certain amount of money. But again, it's a moving inventory. And you have to remember, moving inventory sometimes is great. It gets you to where you want to go, but it can also injure other people depending upon who's behind the wheel.
That's very true. Very true. Well, I rent mine out. It's a Genesis GV80, so it's a new car. Mm-hmm. And people want to drive it just because it's different. It kind of looks like a Bentley. I think the same guy that designed the Bentley Bentayga. And I ran it for $200 a day here in Cincinnati, which is a lot. But the clientele I get is probably mostly professionals because they're spending that much money. It's probably a lot of times the business that's spending the money because I'm not too far from the airport. So I just pick it up, drop it off. Sometimes, or they just come here and I've got an office building and they can just pick it up in the driveway anytime they want. And I can do whatever I want here. I got a huge parking lot, just spray the damn thing off. And now they've got Neighbor. I don't know if you're familiar with Neighbor, but you can rent out your parking spaces on Neighbor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's at neighbor.com. Yeah, it's a whole new thing. I actually got a guy whose dad unfortunately passed away and he's got an older car that he wants to just, I guess maybe he's selling the house or something. And now he needs a place to put the car. $45 a month. You just sit at my parking lot. I'm fine with that. So, I mean, it's just little side hustles like that. But like the whole goal for me and for I think why I'm doing it is to show people because, with side hustles, with businesses, it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to actually do it and show them. So every quarter I take a screenshot in Turo and I say, here's how much money I made. Essentially the car is paid for, $1,000 a month car payment. I got a free car. Every once in a while, this Saturday, I got to go drop it off to a guy, get it back Monday. I got another car, no big deal. But the car's paid off, and cars aren't going down in value anymore. So, I try to teach people like, hey, look, your two biggest expenses, your house and your car. You go out and you buy a 4-family, you move into one, you house hack, house is paid for. You're living for free. Go out and buy a car, put it on Turo. You might not have it every weekend. Free car. Now you saved up money to go and do other ventures, bigger, scalable type of ventures that you really, really want to do. And I love that. I mean, you went from scale to scale. You went from all these cars to now all these marriages. I can't believe this. 3,000 marriages you've officiated?
I've officiated over 4,000.
Over 4,000 now. So the information I got was old.
Well, yes.
Just in 2 months.
Yes, my dear friend Robert, right. No, I updated it as of at the end of 2021. And well, I have to tell you, I mean, remember, I'm in the wedding capital of the world. Okay. Which is Las Vegas.
Very true.
However, and one thing I do want to preface is because we are in a city where we have a large volume of weddings. Therefore, the rates that officiants receive are less than what you can make outside of the city. So, which we'll get into my course. So, for example, I have colleagues that are in California. They'll make anywhere between $800 and $1,200 a wedding, where that's going to take me several weddings to get to that point in Las Vegas. Okay, because of the competition. So you can do quite well in the wedding industry if you put your mind to it. And really, it all boils down to what passion do you have? And I think that's the key thing, Adam, as we're talking about people now that are transitioning and we've heard of this big great resignation that's going on, right? Yeah. And people are wondering, well, but I still need to make money, right? You still need to do something. And now we're getting back out there again. We're not afraid to go out. We're not afraid that we're going to get COVID, become ill, whatever it is, or infects other members of our family. So I think now people are getting that urge, right, that they want to do something where they're actually coming into contact with people. So, becoming a wedding officiant, talk about what a great way you're walking into a couple's lives on one of the happiest days of their lives.
Yes.
And providing them with a memory to last a lifetime. That's incredible. And get paid.
Like
the trifecta. Think about that.
Well, let's talk about getting paid because I just did the quick math. So 4,000 weddings multiplied by $1,200. Say just for example, your people in California were doing the numbers you were doing as far as 4,000 weddings. But they were getting $1,200. That's $4.8 million.
Well, that's over. First of all, my 4,000 weddings is over a course of 12 years. So,
let's divide that by 12 years. Let's see what that turns out. That's $400,000 a year. If you're getting 1,200
in a market, that's in a market where you can make great money for an officiant. In Las Vegas, the per capita is a little bit lower, and it can go anywhere between $100 and $200. So it's maybe $300. So it's a little different, and depending upon where you concentrate your efforts. So in Vegas, most of us we have a portion of our business where we might concentrate with the chapels. So the chapels, your fee is a lot less, and those are the chapels that'll book weddings every half hour. I only work with chapels that I enjoy working with that provide a quality wedding. Even though it's a half-hour wedding, it's a wedding that is memorable, elegant, and legendary. And those are the key things for me.
That differentiates you.
Yes. Chapel of Flowers is one venue I work out of. The Venetian, which is one of the top, hotels.
Oh, I love the Venetian.
Weddings,
yeah.
Yes. And I work with Maverick Helicopters, and I work.
Oh, nice.
Yes, so I get to go tomorrow. I'm going to the Grand Canyon. Even though it's in Arizona, I marry the couple. Then when they come back, I repronounce them in Nevada. So there's so many different ways that you can maximize yourself. And that's one thing. When I developed the course, I know, which we'll get into, is sharing with people. Then you have to have a passion. You have to enjoy being around people. And, maybe you're looking to even break into the public speaking business. This is a great stepping stone. Because
wow, that's a good point.
You got a script, right? You have a script in front of you. You get comfortable in front of a crowd. You get comfortable with the microphone. You get comfortable with cueing people. Well, since I've been doing it for so many years, I walk up, I'm extremely comfortable. I don't need a script. I incorporate, because of the type of person I am, when I ask the couple of questions, because I meet a couple half an hour usually before their ceremony. And I do private ceremonies as well. But most couples I meet, and I incorporate their love story. So you just learn how to think on your feet quickly. That is a stepping stone if you want to ever get into public speaking as well. And public speaking is not easy. People think they can just get up and ramble. It's a whole other framework and braid work, we call it, a storyboard, framing of public speaking. So that's also got me on to the journey of public speaking too.
Wow.
So there's a few things that have occurred because of this. But again, when I wake up in the morning, today I know I have 3 weddings later today, and I don't have to. I get to do this, and that is something that makes you happy. And I just listened to a podcast. I haven't finished it yet. I think his name was Adam Burke, and he wrote a new book called Strength to Strength. And he talks about that we have to get to a point in our lives where what are we doing for our happy retirement bank? Oh. Not money, our happy retirement bank. He just shared a story. He was on an airplane. He wouldn't say who it was. And a husband and wife were behind him, and they were talking. And she kept saying, but you're worth it. What do you mean you'd be better off dead? You've touched so many lives. And he said, this went on for like 20, 25 minutes. And when he got off the plane, he never shared who it was. It was one of the wealthiest men in the country that has touched so many lives, but he wasn't happy. Wow. So when you're in this type of field, you get to be happy. It's like, the endorphins kick in.
Exactly. Wow. Well, I bet you got some great stories too, on top of all this. I mean, I could just imagine.
Do I ever? Yeah.
I could just imagine some of the stuff, like the way people show up, especially in Vegas, yes, like dressed in like some kind of theme. Did they ever ask you to help them with some of that stuff, like the theming and everything and finding stuff?
So there are ministers that do theme weddings, and they do them very well. You have Elvis, Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, depending upon what they want, if they want a Star Wars theme. And there are ministers that definitely conform to that, because if they have to bring out a costume, you're going to add more money to that ceremony as well. But people do just show up. I had a gal show up one day, and her and her husband their first date was Jurassic Park. So she came dressed in a big dinosaur. Well, okay. And they were military. But they were dressed. And I said, gee, this brings a whole new meaning to, Bridezilla, right? It's now, oh my gosh.
She is Bridezilla right now. Yeah.
Right. Because when you think about it, but, and she was pregnant. Oh gosh, I felt so bad because she had a little fan in the back of her costume.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know if
it's Vegas on top of that. Like here.
Well, yeah, just the other day, it was interesting. I was at one of the chapels. Gal was wearing, she's wearing a shirt over her skirt. And when she actually came out, the bride, she walked into the gazebo and all she had was a bathing suit top on and just a little, tie, a little sarong thing on the side. And it was fine. I mean, I'm not shocked. I think the other coordinators were shocked. They were saying, Maria, what did you think of her outfit afterwards? I said, I've married people in their bathing suits, but less than that. So it's okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, Adam, you would be surprised. That's what happens. I think when there are people that come to Vegas, and that's what's great about our city. First of all, we recognize, we welcome everyone. We recognize love is love, right? You're going to have same gender. Mm-hmm. You're going to have non-binary. Those are things that happen nowadays. You're going to have people that are trans, they are transgendering over. So you need to be able to think about how you're going to perform that wedding. I actually, for the first time, it was not a legal wedding. When I went to one of the chapels, and these are very far and few between, I actually married 3 people. Well, it's a commitment ceremony. So there was this gentleman that he and his wife were married for 10 years. And she's a nurse, and she met another nurse who now she brought into the relationship. So this guy has now 2 committed wives.
Oh, wow.
So you have to be able to think on your feet. You don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. Okay. So you just have to be able to, how do you incorporate this in and make them feel like you're doing them justice and providing them with the ceremony that they can remember? Because I'll certainly remember that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that kind of strikes you. Like, you're like, wow, okay, this is a little different, right?
It sure is.
Well, based on your name, you probably grew up Catholic like me. And you could be like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, this is, you're like,
I got to tell you something. My priest, I have a dear friend who's a priest. He's probably saying, Maria, how many Hail Marys? Right? I feel like, but you know what? I have learned that I think today, as we've gone through actually, with what's happened with COVID and everything, first of all, more and more people are coming out, and whatever their preferences for love, they're sharing that. We're seeing that. And, we'll talk about the dating too a little bit, but more and more people too that are baby boomers and older, I should say millennials, not millennials, Gen Xers and older. So late 50s on up. After COVID too, there seems to be an increase of almost like a 50% divorce rate I was reading.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they've been with their partners for so long, and now they realize, what? What are you banking in your happy retirement, right? What's going in the bank for your happy retirement? So I think that's happening. And that's why you're seeing a lot more people also out there in the dating world looking for their forever love.
Well, and it's also much more accessible now too. So I think it's like, people are like, well, hey, I don't have to go out there in the dating pool. I don't have to go to like a dance club to find somebody.
Right.
People can get on Farmers Only or Christian Mingle or, gosh, there's tons of them. Grindr. I mean, you get on any of these things and, you start swiping,
Well, you know what? And that's the key thing. I think everybody gets concerned, especially the baby boomers generation, which is my generation. They feel like, oh my gosh, you have to worry about somebody taking advantage of you. And we've heard of that movie, The Tinder Swindler. You know what? Those are far and few between. And you have to just make sure you have enough information and know how to date with an open mind and with good information, smart dating. And that's what I call it, is smart dating. But you need to get out. You need to look at those apps and not discount them, because you're right. Because when you actually looking for somebody, most people are actually sharing what they want in a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you want to know.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm looking at your website. You do house blessings too. You need to hit up my father. He's out in Sedona, Arizona. They run an Airbnb out there, but he's a Native American shaman, priest.
Oh,
kinda.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he's part Cherokee, but he really took it. He was into drugs and alcohol for a long time, and he's been sober for almost 30 years now, I guess. And they run an Airbnb. They get a lot of people who are van lifers that stop by the Airbnb, want to, take a hike in the woods and things like that. So, he has his little stone circles set up, and he does axiotonal alignments and, but yeah, I'm looking at this house cleansing thing too. So that's kind of interesting. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, my dad, and he's not too far, I guess, in Sedona. If you're bouncing around going to the Grand Canyon and everything, but yeah, that's like a center of, very liberal, very progressive, very open and spiritual type of community. So I could see a lot of these services that you've got going over pretty well there.
Well, it's important. I became a licensed minister in 2010, and I just started doing this last year is also end of life celebrations, and it took me a long time to get that. Yeah, not everybody can do that, and I had to really be ready to perform one, especially losing my husband 10 years ago too, and just losing a loved one. But then I realized there's a need, and again, there's a calling. So when I actually train people with my course, I'm now going to be adding that component to it as well. So whoever buys my course will get that as an upgrade as soon as I want to make sure I'm perfecting what I'm doing before I actually share it. And one of the things is I really, became motivated about sharing my knowledge. And, there's times in our life where we hit certain decades of change. And there are times as we get older that we want to share our knowledge. We want to share it to help other people so that their path is an easier path.
Yes.
My long journey becomes their shortcut.
Right now, that's not the narrative for your generation, right? The Gen Y people are like, oh, they're the evilest generation. They stole all the money and all this other whatever they're talking about.
Yeah, that's okay. But you know what? Everybody has a different perception of, what they think. But the thing is that's one of the reasons why I wanted to share what I've learned. Because when I started, I made so many mistakes and it wasn't easy. It's a competitive industry. And what's interesting and ironic, I was in an industry that was very male dominated, which the car rental industry still is.
Which is weird because I feel like you got women enjoy this much better and pull it off a whole lot better. And I'll be honest, you're way better at multitasking than we are. So.
Well, that's okay. But however, you'd be surprised, first of all, that there are still couples that will say, oh, her name is Maria. Please don't put her on my wedding. I want a male.
What?
Yeah, exactly. So
what is going on?
Yeah, I'm thinking you don't know what you're missing, but you know what? You want to give the couple the best experience. And again, one of the reasons I have a passion is like I said, you're walking into a couple's one of the happiest days of their lives. Okay. And that's the key thing. And you want to make sure you're providing them with what their expectation level is and even higher than that. And that's the key thing, because the wedding ceremony is the trajectory, especially to their wedding celebration day. And if you have an officiant that's just picking up a book and reading and has very monotone and not even acknowledging the guest, that makes all the difference in the world. It sets the tone off. Because it's a celebration, whether it's two people or 200 people, it doesn't matter. So my passion is to give people the tools so they can succeed and do well. Because what my course is a little bit different is I also give them a little bit of tips and techniques on their voice, on, being able to really tap into the type of person they are so that their personality can show. And I make them, if they take the course with me, I get them to rehearse with me. And let me tell you, that's not easy to rehearse. Okay, because especially if you're not too sure and it's in front of a teacher. So we even do it on Zoom. So there are things that I cover: marketing, I cover same gender, and I'm adding now a binary ceremonies as well as transgendering, because you really have to be careful with your language, extremely careful.
Oh yeah. And big time.
Yeah. So that's important as well. So those are the things that I put in for my course. And what I tell people is the course of my course, you can make back, depending upon where you live and how you market yourself, in 1 or 2 weddings. But again, you've had the experience. I talk about blocking. I talk about what it takes with working with photographers, videographers, how to handle a microphone, just making sure that you're always prepared. And I think that's the key thing. Yeah.
Because this is somebody's special day. You don't want to be the person who can't figure out how to turn the power on the microphone, and that could affect the mood and things like that. That's interesting that you even thought of that too, to even put it in the course. So very detailed or very detail oriented, because there's a lot of stuff that you could just teach. Oh, here's how you do it. Da, 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 da. But yeah, the snafus, like you said before, teaching people some of the mistakes you made so they don't have to make them.
Exactly. And I think that's the key thing is people need to understand that. And you have also couples that decide, I'm going to have my Uncle Harry, perform my wedding ceremony. He's a speaker or he's a pastor at a church. Well, that's great. Okay. But if you bring him, let's say, to Las Vegas, where you are, you're pressed for time, Uncle Harry can't go on for 35 minutes. And you have to also take into consideration what I tell all of my officiants, whether they're doing one for somebody or they're going to make this into a business for themselves, is you have to factor in, where is that wedding being held? Is it outside? Is it inside? And what's the heat like? So for in Las Vegas, if it's 5:00 in the afternoon in the summertime, it's hot.
Oh, yeah.
You'll have people dropping like flies. So those are things you need to take into consideration as well. There's a lot of different factors that people don't realize too. And being able to, just improvise. Sometimes things happen and you've got to learn how to be flexible. And that's probably where the course that I've created, and I continually improve upon it, is a little different than most. And I really want to see people that take the course get value out of it. I had a woman write to me that she was so thrilled. She took my course and was just to perform her grandson's wedding. And she did the one on her own. She said it made all the difference in the world. So I have their digital courses. One you can take on your own. One I send you out the drip content every week for 3 weeks. We meet on Zoom and we go through what your challenges are, your stumbling blocks, what worked, and what we can do to improve it.
I love it. This is almost like the perfect side hustle. I mean, even what you were talking about where, if you simply just want to officiate a family member's wedding or a few family members' weddings, right. Because it's not cheap. These weddings are getting crazy out here. They were saying, I think the average wedding's over $30,000 now.
Exactly. You're right. And that's what Wedding Wire, and they were talking about. The average wedding is about $30,000. But what's even more interesting is the wedding industry is catapulting because, of course, COVID pushed back many weddings. Now you have more people getting divorced and you can have more people getting married. So it just in the U.S. alone, on the average, about 2 million weddings a year occur. Okay. They're expecting, and they went up to 2.2, they're expecting about 2.7 million over the next each year over the next couple of years and growing. So it's interesting because there's a lot of millennials that were not getting married that are now getting married.
Sure.
And that's also because of what happened with COVID. They realized, this is something I think we should do. There are many times I marry couples that their kids, some of them are older, some of them are younger, but they've been together, they had children, right? They meet, they buy a house, they have kids, and then they decide to get married. They're still together. So they decide that they do need that legal piece of paper, that it does make a difference. And it does. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that people don't understand about these types of businesses. This is, if you do a good job, these folks that you marry are going to have somebody else they know that gets married. So, initially you're going to probably spend a nice chunk of change, and maybe you go over this in your course. You spend a nice chunk of change marketing your business, just getting the word out there. Maybe you're doing a couple weddings every month, or whatever that is. You're coming in slow, but over time, this kind of thing builds up. So you might have a regular job. You're working, you're just doing this on the weekends. This could completely become your thing at some point.
Well, actually, you're right. And it can. Now, depending upon what your circumstances are, if you have young children at home, you're going to have a different calling as where you need to be available for them. And that's why for many people that are at a point in their life where they're looking to pivot. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do it even if you have children at home. That depends upon your flexibility with your partner if you have one. But having the time, because most weddings do occur on the weekends. In Las Vegas, we're 7 days a week, completely different type of atmosphere. But you know what? There are people that get married during the week in other cities and states throughout this country as well. And then we have like what they call sign and go packages where you can just meet up with the couple. They just need you to they say the I do's and you can come up with a special rate. A lot of notaries too use this as a side hustle.
This could be a notary thing too. Like you could append this, like if you're doing this, be a notary.
Exactly. So there's a lot of ways that you can do this, but you touched upon something, Adam, about, spending a chunk of change marketing. The best marketing you can do is going out and meeting other people, going to networking events, going to business events, and telling them, this is what I do on the side. This is my side hustle passion. It's love. And if you put together a little pitch, a 20-second pitch, a 30-second pitch that talks about that, putting it out even on LinkedIn, just letting other people know to say, hey, I noticed Adam here. He's an officiant. I think he might, let's call him, see what he can do for us, putting it out on Facebook. You don't have to spend a chunk of change to do that. And what you can do is, if you're really, really looking to stretch yourself and you really want to get to the next level, you can also say, I perform wedding ceremonies and I also like to speak about love, why love is important. So you can even then start developing a talk. That can get you the entree that gives you the business. And that's the key. That's
interesting. Have you ever done Toastmasters? Is that what, do you ever recommend that for anybody? Or
I think Toastmasters is a fabulous organization. I started working with some private coaching over the last couple of years. So for me, a Toastmasters wasn't my platform, but I meet many, many people that I think Toastmasters is fabulous for giving you that framework, that blueprint that you need, and getting you comfortable, because Toastmasters has table topics that you're thrown into, and that gets you to think on your feet. But also the officiating, you get to think quickly on your feet as well, and you're getting paid for it.
You're getting paid.
So that's where I've learned to develop those skills. And you might call them soft skills, but it's so important to have presentation skills. And it doesn't matter if I'm in front of 2 people or 2,000 people. You need to develop your presence, and your presence says everything. Because when you walk into a room, okay, your aura, your energy is what attracts other people. And being in this business, the energy that you can develop around yourself is infectious.
I love it. Well, I'm just thinking too, because you said go to networking events, go to these things. If you went to a Toastmasters, I bet you there's not many people there who are in this line of business. But here you are at a Toastmasters thing and say, why are you a Toastmasters? Everybody's going to ask you, why are you a Toastmasters? You're going to stand up there, tell people why you're a Toastmasters. Oh my gosh, my niece is getting married. She wants to get married in Vegas, or my lead niece. Oh, it'd be great to have you, you do the wedding, because now they see you in action. They see you up there. They see how confident you are. All the stuff you just talked about, right? Oh man, Maria would be great for our, daughter's wedding or whatever,
Exactly right. So there's so many ways you can market yourself that side hustle can become your main hustle.
Yeah. And that's the main thing. That's what side hustle is. That's what the podcast is all about. How do I turn my side hustle into my main hustle? Or at least, there's just people out there looking to make a few $100 extra a month, to pay for their car, or to pay for, whatever, save for their kids' education, whatever that is. And if you're, maybe you don't have nothing, maybe your weekends are open, you don't have a whole lot going on, but this is a good way. Even if this isn't your business, this is a great way to meet people.
Oh, absolutely. And when you tell people what you do, they look at you. Wow. It really is exciting, because you're getting to meet people. And again, they're showing up, and most of them are looking fabulous, right? They're dressed to the hilt and they've prepared. And you really, again, you feel you're drawn into that energy and that love that the couple is actually, it permeates. But, you talked about getting out there and getting out to networking groups. And if you decide to add the components of baptismals. So for example, there are a lot of people that want to have their children baptized. So what I tell any officiant that I start to train is get your ordination. You can get it online. It's free, pretty much. You get your ordination papers, reverend, minister, whatever. And then you can also, and that's an affiliation with a religious organization, non-denominational. Then you can offer baptismals. I have gone to many homes where people don't necessarily want it. They can't get to a church. It's not what they want. And I do in-home baptismals. And because again, there's a lot of people that are Catholic, right? Just like you think, oh my God, if we don't get baptized, we're going to go to hell, right? No, purgatory, not hell, right? We're going to be
baby comes out and you're sprinkling it. You're sprinkling it right away.
So you're giving that, and what's happening is you're blessing the baby, or even I bless a baby and his dad, because you just don't know.
Well, I didn't know that because my brother's ex-wife, she was, she's Wiccan and all that. And she was kind of against the kids getting baptized. And I think my mom, she goes, well, you can baptize the baby. Like you can baptize a baby with, without a priest. I think she went over there with some holy water and just kind of sprinkled it on the kids.
Well, what I like to do is I like to bring them a certificate. I like to research the history of the baby's name or the adult's name.
Yeah.
You want to give them something. It's a ritual. It's a ritual. That's what it is.
It is a ritual.
House blessings. And then if they decide to move on to end of life celebrations, and end of life celebrations, again, you're coming into a time in a family's life where they want to honor the person that has left us. And you want to give them words of remembrance, and you want to be able to facilitate that particular service. And it's more of a facilitation. So those are things that are, again, this can expand to so many different ways of how you touch people's lives.
Yeah.
And get paid for it.
Well, and it's always going on. So, yes. we were talking about, I have a buddy, he's a political consultant. He was thinking about creating an ad agency all around politics. I'm like, that's a great idea. Every 2 years, somebody's running for something, and you just get 5 or 6 of those people every turn. They're paying, some of them are paying $20,000 a month. Once it starts getting close to primaries, once it starts getting close to the general election, big money they're willing to spend on pay-per-click. They need somebody to manage that, all kinds of stuff. But this is something that keeps happening. People are going to always get married. People are always going to, unfortunately pass away. People are always going to have babies that need to be baptized. People, this is something that is, if you start building up a base of clientele, they're going to sell you into other people. And it's something that most families need. I mean, almost every one of them are going to need it. And, it's an ongoing business, but also provides you the opportunity to network with people for whatever else you're doing. It's almost like the Uber drivers, right? Like they get into the Uber and they start talking to the people. They're making money off the Uber, but then they're like, oh yeah, I do roofing. I do tile work. Oh, really? Oh, well, we're thinking about redoing our kitchen, or I got a friend who's trying to give me your card. And I mean, it's a way just to meet people.
Well, it's a way to meet people. You can, the other areas you can become a notary. You can incorporate, if you have a partner, he or she can be a photographer or videographer. So right now, then you've got something else right there. So there are so many different avenues that you can, when you get into this business, that you can even incorporate your family if you wanted to help you.
You're in the people meeting business.
You might have a teenager at home that's great with video. Right? That can actually video the ceremony. Or again, you might have a partner that loves photography. This is a great way to break in. Right. So there's so many different avenues that you can do. But, it's interesting because on this journey of officiating, I also talk to people about finding love again, over 50, 60, 70, and 80, because I'm a widow. So that also has been another avenue for me. That I have been involved with, helping people put themselves out there online, where they feel comfortable getting back in the dating world and understanding the red flags. So that's one area that I did also venture off in. And I also speak about love. And I also just launched, because my name is True Love Knots, my company name. My SEO guy said, Maria, your name. He says, it goes to jewelry all the time. So we actually have a bracelet that we're launching, the True Love Knots. But what's different about this, Adam? It's blessed by me. So it's blessed by me. And when you get the box, it says blessed with love to wear with love. So yeah,
I love it.
You can just go into, there's so many areas when you start, like you said, when you start a side hustle, you just don't know the rippling effects of what can happen.
You don't know. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you about this, and I'm thinking of this script my dad keeps trying to pitch Hollywood. It's called Forged in Love, and he's got a friend down in Puerto Rico. I can't remember where, but anyway, he's got his own forge. I mean, the guy's a jeweler, like a smith. And you've got these couples competing for like a free ring or, a special ring for him. And they have to do this competition, like The Bachelor or whatever. But then they get this beautiful set of rings for themselves and all at the end of it. So I was like, oh, that'd be a really cool idea. But that's something that he's kind of passionate about, and then like he's doing the Airbnb, but he's also an ordained minister. He's also, a Native American chief or whatever title he has now. And he takes people on tours. I mean, that Airbnb business he has leads to other things. And after we have this conversation, I'm telling him to take a look at your website and take a look at this course, because I think there's an opportunity here he's missing out on, that he could be, with all these people that are coming through, young couples that, are doing the van life thing for a year or two or whatever, and they're just traveling the country, checking stuff out. Here he is, ordained minister, come stay at our Airbnb and have your wedding right here beneath the red rocks,
Absolutely. And you know what? There's a lot of people doing that. And I have to tell you, that's so great. You see young couples getting out and doing that. They're taking their families and just selling their homes. And I think that this COVID, what happened with COVID, is just changing the whole trajectory of life in itself. And a lot of us are a lot more aware of and conscious of what is important to us. So definitely, your dad and I have to connect. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And
you guys
any of your listeners, we have to connect if you think you want to do this.
I mean, it's a great idea, but I think you're right. I think COVID, it's almost like we all woke up out of this this daze. We were all just working. We were all just doing what we thought we were supposed to do, right? And it was almost like we were all zombies, or we were all under this spell. And COVID was like, wait a minute, do I need to be doing this? Do I need to be going into a drive-in and sitting in traffic an hour a day, going into the office, stressed out, doing something that I don't want? Now I've been working from home, or whoever, say you've been working from home for the last, year or year and a half or 2 years at this point, I guess. Now you're starting to wonder, like, man, I'm spending all this money on daycare or whatever. Here I am at the house. Maybe I don't want a job that's going to require me to go back into the office.
That's so true. And I think a lot of people, exactly. It's almost as if we woke up from a coma and recognized, do we really need all these things around us as well? When COVID happened, of course, I was impacted because people were not coming into Vegas and getting married.
Oh, very true.
But they did open it up 6 weeks later because there was a need. There was municipalities throughout the country that were not going to be open and issue marriage licenses. So we had an influx of people coming in. We actually were only, in 2020, we were only 18% down from 2019. And then, of course, 2021, the marriage licenses that were issued we actually increased the amount of marriage licenses. So in 2022, we're on the trajectory of that as well. But, with that said, that was a rare thing. So during that time, business got slow for me. That's when I pivoted. And that's when I thought about people are eventually going to be coming out and they're going to want to maybe learn. I need to share my knowledge. I don't care if there's more competition. I want to see people do a good job, better than me. That means I did my job giving you the tools to start. And then also I wrote a book about going from just one to a plus one.
And was this during COVID you wrote the book?
All COVID, during COVID.
Oh, wow.
Started a podcast and a YouTube channel. I took my time and I really used it wisely. And I think that was the key thing. Our homes became our church, right? Our workspace, our gyms, our entertainment. That's what happened. So I took the time to do that. And I think what's happening is not everybody did that, but they started to realize, and we realized we didn't need all these things. So what we need in order to survive today is, yes, you need to have money to pay the bills, but you don't need to have, 5 of this or 6 of that. And I think that's the key thing. But the key thing that I really feel that came out of COVID is more of an awareness for life. Because you know what? Now in my age, I've had more yesterdays than todays. Mm-hmm. But we don't know, for any of us, how many tomorrows we have. And that's the key thing that came out of it.
Well, I think you're onto something here that I want to talk about, because I think as I get older, I've always been kind of a minimalist. Like my grandma, we lived with her most of my life. And, she grew up in the Depression, and, she used to tell us, keep a quarter in your shoe in case you get beat up, because we grew up in a bad neighborhood. Keep a quarter in your shoe in case you get beat up and robbed, and you can call if you need to use a payphone or something. And, she had that mindset, and save everything. I mean, we had all the Cool Whip containers full of grease and everything in our refrigerator and, all that kind of stuff. But
maximizing everything.
Maximizing everything. But it was four of us. I mean, my dad was, he's drug addict, alcoholic for a long time. My mom divorced him when we were like 5, and off he goes living in California with the Indians and everything. And they finally sobered him up. But, he wasn't paying child support. And it was my mom, my grandma, me and my brother. And me and my brother were sharing a bedroom. My mom's on the couch sleeping. My grandma's on a reclining chair sleeping. And that was our lives. But it's crazy. I kind of feel weird about buying things. Like I've always felt weird about having a big house. What's the point of that? Like, what is, why do I have this gigantic house? It's just me living there, right? Or me and my wife living there, or whatever it is, right? It kind of seems like the older you get, like you go through this phase where you scale up and then you scale back down. It's almost like the stuff that you bought and all that extra crap that you have laying around becomes a burden. And you start realizing what's important. And it's not things. It's not competing with your neighbors. It's traveling. It's doing what you enjoy doing. Being around people that are going to lift you up and help you to feel positive, especially when we live in a world where you've got wars happening right now. I mean, could you imagine being in some of these places right now? I mean, it breaks my heart every time I turn on the TV and I have to hear this stuff. It's people are starting to change. They're starting to think about living their lives differently. And I think the older we get, the more we realize all this stuff that we have to buy. You wouldn't have to make so much money if you didn't have to buy all this crap, right?
Well, I think that you have to go back to what's happened to us with the social media world and what we see and how we perceive it. You have these shows that these people have, these reality shows where they have a lot of wealth and so on and so forth. And you think you want to live your life that is going to make you happier. So what happens is our focus changes because of what has happened with social media. Social media is great, but also it can be a big liability as well. I just listened to a podcast about stolen focus, how we focus so much on the likes or what we can have because somebody has that great bag, that great car. They're going on this outrageous vacation. Sometimes the best vacations are those where you just get in a car and go.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, they're the greatest ones. Yeah. Just drive down from here. We could just drive to Nashville anytime we want, or, go to St. Louis. I mean, everything's like within at least 1 to 2 hours of Cincinnati. Like there's so many cities that we can go explore and it's so easy, but those are the best. Yeah.
It's all about the experience. It's all about your mindset and how you perceive the experience. If you're with somebody that you love and like, and you're having an In-N-Out burger or you're having $100 steak, does it matter?
Doesn't matter at all. Fills your stomach.
It's the experience that you have to get to share with other people. And that's probably the biggest awareness that I like to share with my audience, with my people. And what I do in life, I practice the same thing in my own personal world. So you're right. We've come to this hopefully most of us have woken up from being in a coma.
Yeah, I feel like that's what it was. We were all being duped into just this monotony of life, just going through life, working for other people, making other people rich. It's like, take control of your life. Do a startup. Do something else. This seems like low-hanging fruit. And now talk about your course. So, to close this out, let's talk about your website, talk about your course, talk about how people can get started in this.
Well, first of all, my website, as you know, is True Love Knots, and it's TRUELOVE and KNOTS.com. And quick history, Love Knots, the reason the name was chosen, my late husband chose it because the Celtics, when they went out to sea, their loved ones would tie a special knot on the sail so they would come back home. And then they're always loved.
I like that.
So that's the reason of the name. And with that, you can contact me on my website or Maria@trueloveknots.com. My course, I have 2 different courses. I have a do it on your own, and you get the videos, 13 videos, and anything that I add, you automatically get, you don't pay for, with the workbook where you can take the course on your own. And that's a pretty good course for people that want to maybe perform 1 or 2 ceremonies, or they want to be their officiant for their family and friends, right? Then I have the other course where you do it with me. And that course is usually over 3 weeks. I only do that so many times a year. And we meet on Zoom once a week. And you get 4 videos at a time because I don't want to overload you with videos. So we have drip content. It's housed on Thinkific. and you get the workbook. But in addition, you get to work with me because I throw in a bonus and you get to practice with me and you have access to me as well. And actually anybody has access to me that buys my course. And again, any upgrades that occur, you automatically get that. You know, my purpose is I want to see you succeed. Your success is my success. Okay, that's exactly how that works. So, and then if you're looking to get back in the dating world, you can always contact me. I have podcast and YouTube videos. I talk about weddings and I talk about finding love and being in love. And I have my bracelet, my new bracelet.
I love it. I love the bracelet thing.
Yeah,
Man, this is perfect.
By me. It's blessed by me. So that's rolling out and it's a mere $11.
That's nothing.
No, that's right. And 4 colors. But you know what? I'm just excited to share just with your listeners that you need to find that perfect side hustle for you. And this can be a stepping stone, like we talked about with anything. You can do multiple things. So you just never know when you're going to start something and where that road's going to take you, but it's going to be a fun road trip, right?
100%. 100%. Well, Maria, I appreciate your time. This is awesome. You're a true entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur who gives back. The pivot that you made is commendable during COVID. The fact that you were able to link up this with other businesses and tell people about that too. I mean, it just puts people in a different mindset. And I really appreciate it. And I thanks for your time today and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
All right, Maria. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Side Hustle City. Well, you've heard from our guests. Now let's hear from you. Join our community on Facebook, Side Hustle City. It's a group where people share ideas, share their inspirational stories, and motivate each other to be successful and turn their side hustle into their main hustle. We'll see you there, and we'll see you next week on the show. Thank you.